Hi Anti-Society, welcome back to the Antisocial Planet, and today we are reading chapters 13 and 14 of Tower of God. So the last couple of chapters we got introduced, well, we didn't get introduced to Hong Sang, but we got properly introduced to the challenge that Hong Sang's part of the floor has, and let me tell you, I was trying so hard to try and figure out exactly what the puzzle was, because we have all these doors and they have to pick the right one. They pick the wrong one, they end up failing the test, and if they run out of time, they end up failing the test. Now there's a little bit of ambiguity about what the time limit actually is, because Hong Sang said it was 10 minutes, but we know from earlier when they were talking to one of the other people going up the tower in the line to start the challenge, that there was really a 5-minute limit in terms of people who actually passed the test. So people who took longer than 5 minutes to pass ended up failing, or they heard screaming at least. So there's ambiguity about that, exactly which one is correct. Part of my thinking for that was that the 10-minute limit was actually a clue about how to find which door it was. We also have this clock, this analog clock that is in the room, which doesn't make any sense because they have the little orb things that follow them around that have digital clocks on them, so you don't actually need an analog clock for them to keep track of what time it is, like we've seen in previous challenges where they'll just put a countdown timer on it so that everyone knows how much time they have left. So I feel like the analog clock is part of it too. I want to know what the answer is, but we left off the last chapter with Rock just kicking down one of the doors. I don't know if that is at random, if there is some kind of logic behind that, because I feel like there's more to Rock than we've seen so far. Not really sure, but it's something that's been sitting in my brain and I haven't gotten any farther with it over the last week. So let's just read episode 13 and see how this whole Rock kicking down the door thing turns out. Okay, episode 13. Okay, I don't like that Kun is picking a fight with Rock, because I think Rock's impulsive decision, while impulsive, was probably the best way to go about this, because I still have a part of my brain that is convinced that this whole test is rigged in some way. It's either way simpler than it seems, or there really is no right answer to it. Just sort of sips tea as Hong Sang watches the fight happening. That yellow turtle. In my brain, this is ominously slow clapping, which is usually not a good sign. I also don't like how Hong Sang is in this shadow now. That freaks me out a little bit. See, their eyes are shadowed. What have we said about people who are lit from underneath and their eyes are in shadow? See, you have a creepy smile too, and you're lit from underneath your face. Never trust someone who is lit from under their face. Never. It's always bad. I'm happy they passed the test though. Look at Rock's serious face though. He knows something. I feel like he's so much smarter than he initially seemed. I'm a little bit upset that there isn't actually an answer to the puzzle though, because I spent probably an unhealthy amount of time trying to figure it out and find all of the clues. I'm like Goon. I like complicated puzzles and I guess proving I'm smart by solving them. Okay, I'll admit it. The way that he's no, there must be some actual trick, some way of solving the puzzle. The puzzle has to matter. Same Kun. I feel the exact same way. I mean, they did give hints in that they knew 5 minutes was important because they let people hear the screams and then not hear the screams, right? So they did indicate, okay, who has passed the test and who hasn't, and gave the clue of, well, people who finish in 5 minutes, they passed the test. So that is a clue. It's just they're also red herrings. It's what do you choose to trust and what do you not choose to trust? And I was saying this before where he was oh, trust nobody. I can't trust that guy that told me his theory about the 5 minutes being important. And I'm well, Goon, you are trusting Hong Sang. You're choosing who has the right clues, who is giving you the right hints to solve the problem. And either way, you're choosing to trust somebody. One of the abandoned sons, I sense a backstory of some kind with that. Definitely, it seems like Kun is from an important family, because everybody seems to know about them. Interesting. I would like to come back to that. That's an interesting thing too, of like having a bunch of decisions in front of you. Kind of, if I can go into like some symbolism here, if you have a bunch of decisions in front of you, it can be like very immobilizing to have like so many choices. And I'm definitely like have an issue with this because I'm awful at making decisions. Never ever ask me what I want to eat. I will not have an answer for you because there are too many possibilities. So having so many choices and creating that feeling of immobility when, like, you know, in reality you could just choose anything and have it be okay. Like someone asking me like, hey, what do you want to eat? And I'm like immobilized by choice. It doesn't matter what I pick. I can choose any of the options that are there and it will result in me having food. And that is like the goal, right? Of that question is like,
hey, how do we end up with food?
And we will, no matter what I choose, as long as it's food. And yet being immobilized by that, the longer that you wait to make a decision, the less decision you have. Like the more, I mean, I guess it's not like a death, like life or death thing in the food situation, but like the longer I wait, the less options I have because like it takes time to make food, and like the longer you wait, the hungrier people get, and then you want something that's like quicker to make so that you have it sooner. Whereas if I had chosen like within seconds of being asked, I could probably pick something like a little bit more complicated or special or whatever. It's definitely interesting to have that be part of the test, to be like, who is able to make a decision when faced with a bunch of opportunities, when like it's better to choose one of those opportunities than to not choose at all. I hope that that rambling mess made sense. I would definitely like to know what's in the suitcase, because we've had a couple of hints about that now, both like Hong Sung here, but then earlier when he was trying to get through the Shinsu? Yes, Shinsu is what it's called, right? When he was trying to get through the barrier and it took him a couple of tries to get the suitcase through. So I would definitely like to know what is in the suitcase. Look how proud Rock is. I adore him so much. I will accept you as my man. I love Leader Rock. Ooh, it's the person before that's like a bit of a prodigy character, sort of. That red-haired guy was picking a fight with, who I'm assuming didn't make it, given the screams that emanated after he and his team went into Hong Sung's challenge. Prophecy of God? So there are gods in this world? I mean, it's called Tower of God, so I'm assuming that like the person in charge of the tower is seen as a god, or the tower itself is seen as like a kind of deity. I suppose that could also be something that happens. But I'm interested in the idea that there are like multiple religions in this world, because I mean, I've already talked a little bit about like the different imagery of like mythology and like religious imagery that we saw in the first episode, where we saw the carvings and stuff that were on the walls. So definitely interested to explore that avenue. Person who is like probably too nice to survive very long in this webcomic. I don't feel good about his chances. I like how he's like, hey, I'm just gonna guess, or like, I guess he's like, hey, I'm gonna talk to my god and like hope that it's the right feeling that I'm getting, and that's gonna be good enough, because it isn't actually about which door they choose. Like, they just have to open one. I kind of like that. I like that, like, in both of those contexts, there's it's like a leap of faith, right? In this case, more involved with fate or faith than like Rock's was, but like in both cases it's like there's no good way to figure out which door it is, so you have to just guess and hope for the best. Someone like Rock who's just like a bit impulsive, just going for it and hoping for the best. And then there's someone like this character who's has like actual like faith and using that as a way of guiding them to an answer, which is also helpful in this context. So I like that different approaches, but like fundamentally have some of the same reasoning behind them. Like what Hong Sung's like, I mean, I could explain why they passed, but I'm gonna let them have this moment. I'll be interested to see how that evolves, of like the prophecy of God power continuing to be an influence on that team's way of getting through the tower. You living burden. I like sleeping guy. Just like, that would be me. That was me all through high school. Just always asleep. Oh, his eyes are watering. Angered Hong Sung, or the other girl, I'm assuming, on the team, the one that has like some anger behind her that was being not so nice to tracksuit guy. I will find the place where I can sleep. That is usually my motivation too. Again, all through high school, any classroom I went into, I was like, what is the best place for me to take a nap? Elgar just kicks down a door and they're like, you passed. Shibisu, that was tracksuit guy. Gotta remember that because I like him. Look at him figuring things out. Proud. Oh, so the clock was a hint. It had 5-minute cycles. Interesting. I noticed that it was like, I think at some point I was like, maybe it's moving weird, but like I couldn't remember starting point of it in the moment. Maybe I'm just trying to sound like I was figuring it out when I wasn't. I didn't figure it out, okay? And I'm a little bit upset about it. Oh, see, that's clever too, of like, since Hansung was like, there aren't any more hints, like it doesn't mean that Hansung is choosing not to give any more hints. It's like, you already have all the information you need, which is what I said before. I was like, okay, if we have all the information we need, then like maybe it's something visually like in the room. But the fact that Shibitsu is like, well, if there aren't any more hints, then that means like, you don't have to look for more hints. Then that means the 5 minutes is all that matters, because that's the thing that keeps getting repeated, right? Between the screams coming from out of the room and then the clock moving in 5-minute cycles. He's like deduced that that is the only hint that matters, so other than that, all the information is pointless. Smarter than I thought he would be, but I'm proud. You don't look that smart. Anak, be nice. I was surprised too. I like that he's also really smart though. He was also part of it? Interesting. Lots of layers to it. So that's like another repeat. That's 3 times of repeating the 5-minute hint. Being told in the line, hearing the screams, and then the clock. Interesting. I mean, that's a good point to be like, if someone, like, same thing of like what I was saying before, of like, if him getting the hint from someone who is like supposedly another one of the people trying to get up the tower, being given that theory about how to pass the test, you have to choose whether or not that is something that you are going to take as a trustworthy hint, or if you are going to just ignore it, right? And that goes back to what I was saying with Kun of like choosing who to trust. Like, are you going to trust Hansung? Are you going to trust the person who gave you the hint in the line? Are you going to trust both? Are you going to trust your teammates? Like, who are you choosing to trust in this decision? Because regardless of which avenue you take, you are choosing to trust someone. So that's an interesting part of the test, to be like, who is going to choose to trust the hints given to them by other people, and who is going to decide to do it on their own? Like, who is going to be independent and who is going to allow themselves to rely on other people? I feel like the person who's annoyed at having to think was saved because he was annoyed. What a mood. That's true. Shibitsu is the only one who truly figured it out, because Rock guessed. The guy who had the prophecy of God relied on his faith. Lore? I'm not quite sure how to say the guy's name who is always asleep, because all of their names have like different origins. But he like just impulsively chose, and Shibitsu is like the only one who actually found all of the hints and connected it all together into the right answer. That's so interesting. I was a little bit frustrated that there wasn't like a grand like solution to the test after I was like taking all of these hints and trying to find the answers. But it is like, it's a very interesting test in its simplicity, because it's not about the test itself. It's about like the character of the people who are going to pass it and who are going to fail. Fascinating. I love the way of explaining character through one of the tests. Yeah, see, that kind of goes back to what I was saying about like being paralyzed by having too many options, choosing whether or not, because like in the like tea analogy that Hangsu is using here, like it's one of those things of choosing any of it is better than not choosing at all. But like, you won't know that until you decide to take that leap of faith and you decide to choose something, right? And it's kind of like, you know, with the tea, like, you're not gonna know if it's poison or if it's medicine, really, unless you have the courage to try it, right? I feel like it's like something that is so applicable to so many things in life. I find that you can get remarkably far just by asking, like, just asking someone. And people are just like so scared to do it because they're like, what if I fail? And I'm like, well, you can either like not have the answer because you didn't bother to ask, or you can ask and like you might still not get the answer that you want, but there's at least a chance that you will get an answer that you want. I feel like a lot of people like don't consider, like actually sit there and think like, what is the worst thing that could happen? And most of the time, once you know what the worst scenario is, you realize it's not that bad. Obviously in this case, it's like life or death. So like, I guess it's sort of bad. I just find it like an interesting philosophical way of passing this particular floor after like a lot of combat style tests that we've had up to this point. Of them being like, But that's coffee. Ridiculous. Why would you have coffee if you can have tea? Yay, Yay, we passed the floor. I don't know, that was hard for me to say. Are we going back in time, or is this like another test that's happening? Or forward in time, I suppose. Because what if it's the test with Rachel, who we have not seen in a while? Or it could have something to do with Lady Yuri and Evan, because we have also not seen them in a while. It could also be like, just like, I was thinking like maybe it's going back in time to like the same test that Bomb was in, but it's just like characters we haven't seen up close yet. I don't know though, because this is a blonde with a ponytail, and that makes me think Rachel. Could be another blonde with a ponytail, but I feel like there's an implication there. Okay, on to episode 14. Episode 14? I always see the 15 at the top, like the number that's at the top, but it's because we had like episode 0, so it's off by a number. Anyway, not important. Who's the redhead? Isn't everyone on this floor yellow themed? I want to know if this is like before Bomb or after. Like I want to know if this is like the previous test or one of the previous tests before Bomb and his team participated, or if it's after. If Rachel is actually part of this team that made it through, then I'm assuming it's before, but that's like making an assumption about who's actually on the team. It could be after. Isn't Jahad's princess? Isn't that Princess Maria? Isn't that connected with Kuhn's backstory? There's so many names now that I'm not even sure. Ooh, so there is an irregular then. So power team then, if there's like Jahad's princess and then also an irregular on the team. Who's the irregular? I feel like it'd be easy to be like the like really big guy out of the team that had like the bloody, like, I don't even know what you would call that weapon. It's almost like a butcher's knife. Hung Thong is like put out trying to keep things orderly, and it's just all going wrong. So does that mean that there's 2 irregulars then currently in the tower, or like going through the tower? Because Bomb and then whoever the irregular is on this team. So there's definitely going to be some chaos in the tower then, right? Because we've already seen people be very like nervous and apprehensive about there being 1 irregular in the tower because of like the reputation that irregulars have. I like the way that he's going to like bribe Hung Sung is to just fill the room with instant coffee. That's the way to Hung Sung's heart. Who are you, person with long blonde hair? See, that fits the theme of the floor though. The yellow hair and the yellow eyes. Everyone on the floor has yellow going on, unless it's Hung Sung. It's just like their hair down. But everyone is yellow, and then there's like this one guy with red hair. Is it just because he's in charge of like the outer part, and then everyone in like the flying city is yellow? This probably isn't important information, and yet I am focusing on it. Calling Lavoro? I feel like it is Hung Sung, which is like their hair down, and then they're figuring out what to do with Lavoro. Crown game. Is that because there's a princess now? See, even the room is yellow. Yellow is the thing. I also like that even with this like far away like aerial shot, I know that that's Rock. Just like the biggest person. Okay, but like I want to know what this guy with the wings deal is, because I don't trust him and he scares me a little bit. Who's this little guy that Kuhn is talking to? Aww. I like that Shibitsu and Bomb are meeting each other. Just like worlds colliding in the best way. Rock, I'm the true leader of the era. The humblest ones turn out to be the scariest. That seems like foreshadowing. I agree though. I think Bomb's gonna end up being the scariest. Maybe even Shibitsu as well. He had some intense vibes when he was like figuring out how to get rid of Hung Sung's room. But I think Bomb's gonna end up being a fairly scary character by like at least close to where it currently is. I know that there's still new chapters coming out. So Shibitsu also made a promise. Interesting. Some connections between Bomb and him. I'm interested on like why he is introducing himself to Bomb though. I mean, not that I think he's like bad news like some of the other characters are, but why be friendly with the other groups? Especially if you're like, oh, the number of people is like going down, so tests are gonna get harder. I guess they can work together though, because I remember someone saying in one of the comments of the last couple of chapters that I did, like there isn't really a set number as of like where the story is right now. There isn't a set number to how many people can make it to the top of the tower, so like theoretically you could like make a super team, like just a bunch of them together teaming up to help get through the challenges. I feel like the like floor administrators though would just like take that as a challenge and make the tests really hard, because it's like kind of a game, right? So I assume that they wouldn't want a bunch of people to make to the top of the tower. I'm assuming sometimes, like most of the time maybe, or maybe just like some of them might not want anyone to make it to the top of the tower. See, look how nice he is, where he's like, the tower, like the inner tower is so big, the chances of you finding the person you're looking for are very small. And yet, he takes it back, and he's like, I hope you find them. Like, I hope you find a way. Look at Coon lurking in the back, though. I don't know what that's about. Lororo is back. A bonus game? I don't know if that's good news, because I'm assuming people can still get eliminated from a bonus game. It almost feels like they're like really trying to narrow down the numbers. Yeah, see? Shibitsu knows what's up. Oh. Well, okay. There's like, you don't have to play, but I'm assuming you can get something cool as like a perk. You know, like when you do like side quests in video games, you can get like certain weapons and equipment and stuff. Okay, that's a pretty good perk though, to just be able to like instantly pass the test. Everybody's more interested now. It's definitely an advantage to like get way ahead of everyone else, right? Which I'm assuming is like an advantage in and of itself. That is a giant throne. I just like take a moment to appreciate the contrast here of like the yellow and then the blue. I mean, technically actual contrasting colors would be orange and blue or yellow and purple, but they tend to be like a little bit too harsh when you actually have like actual contrasting colors or complementary colors. So a lot of the time you'll kind of shift the coloring a little bit just so you can get something that like works a little bit better with each other. Like you don't want to have like orange and blue together. It seems a little bit cartoony. Like same with yellow and purple, it can seem like really harsh to have those two contrasting each other. Having something like blue and yellow is like slightly off from what you might expect, and it works really well together. Orange in general, orange is hard to make work aesthetically. Yes, explain the game to me, and maybe I can figure this one out. Or maybe it's simpler than I make it. Okay, so you want to be the last person holding the crown. Interesting. If there are 5 rounds though, and you just have to be like the last person holding it, doesn't like only the 5th round matter? I'm just saying. I wouldn't rush around to get the crown if I only need it at the end. I would save my energy, and then probably whoever has the crown at the end would have used up a bunch of their energy just to like get the crown and keep it, and then I would be freshly rested and I would have a little bit of an advantage. Okay, so like if you want to be in the next round, you have to have the crown, so my plan wouldn't work. A way around my reasoning. Fair enough, Lororo. But you would want to be chosen at like the last round though, because if you're like in the first round, then you have to win every round until the 5th, right? Like you have to win all 5 rounds if you're in the first one, because you have to get the crown, but be the last one with the crown like each time. So you like luck of the draw, you would want to be in the last round only so that you're like freshly rested and you just have to play the 1 round instead of like multiple rounds. Again, not everything's fair. The tests aren't always run fair. Okay, you can finish the game early, so you could theoretically win in the first round. There's always a 5-minute time limit, isn't there? 10 and 5. Now I'm wondering if that's significant. If 5 minutes and 10 minutes as a limit to the tests is an important factor. I feel like the tower itself is a big puzzle and I just want to solve it. So you can like finish the round early, so that is to your advantage. If you want to like, if you end up in the first round, then you want to like finish them as soon as possible, because you're gonna have to like save your energy to get through the rest of them. Interesting. So once you sit on the throne with the crown, you have to keep it. Wow, like you'll be eliminated otherwise. So if you take a seat on the throne, you gotta stay there. See, that's Coon and I, we think on the same wavelength. I don't know if that's a good thing, but we do. There definitely seem to be like lots of like good, I don't know, incentives to it to kind of like make sure that people aren't like cheating or like even just abusing certain rules. Like there's lots of rules that kind of counter certain things. Like even that I've been saying, I'm like, oh, well, you could just do this. And then there's like a rule that counters some of that stuff to like make sure that even if you take advantage of some of the rules in it to like end the round early or wait to participate and stuff like that, it's a give and take. Like you have to also deal with some sort of disadvantage as a result of that. I like the balance that's happening with how this bonus test is set up. It's true. You could, if you don't take every chance that you have to get into the test, like if you only push the button for the final round, you might not get in. The more rounds you choose to try and participate in, the more chance you will have at actually getting into one of the rounds. Whereas if you only try to get into the last one, you could fail. See, balanced game, I like that. Don't overthink it. That's always been the issue, hasn't it? To not overthink it. So the only team that made it through that test is going to participate in this one. So I'm assuming they tested after Bomb and everybody that we're currently with. Okay, but if one of them is Rachel, that is just going to like push Bomb off kilter. I've been so proud of his growth, and I feel like if the blonde in that team actually is Rachel, that's going to throw him off. If the princess is like Jihad's princess, is connected to Khun's past, that's gonna throw him off. I feel like something really exciting is about to happen. I feel like that's interesting because what if nobody decides to participate? What if like one person is like,
Yeah, let's just do it.
and then they can just walk up and put the crown on and just wait it out for like 10 minutes. I mean, I guess they could also sit on the throne and end it immediately, but they'd have to stay on the throne, and that seems like an unnecessary handicap to put on yourself. Yeah, like what if you just like go through the first few rounds and like nobody decides to participate except you, like your team? Then it would be super easy, like it wouldn't even matter. Did they decide to do it anyway? That sounds like them. They seem very confrontational, but like they seem to just enjoy a good fight, but like not in a way that makes me uncomfortable like some confrontational people do. It doesn't look like anyone's coming out. Ooh, but except them. So like 2 teams maybe? See, like Shibitsu, loving him. Given some weird looks in these couple of chapters that are making me rethink a little bit about him. I mean, he's definitely a lot smarter than I would have pegged him for. Maybe like raw strength isn't his thing, but he seems to have some cunning to him. Also, super excited for this confrontation because these two seem like really good fighters, especially Anak seems to have something going on, making them special. And then this guy, or girl, I guess, I don't want to assume genders, supposedly fairly good at fighting, and then guy with god prophecy powers. So it's only the 2 teams. See, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, if people aren't going to come out in the first few rounds, you could like easily, or like more easily, win them. Because like fighting against one team is a lot easier than fighting against 4. It's still like extra work, I guess, though. But it's going to be really hectic to try and get into the last couple of rounds then, if everyone's playing it that way. So it looks like we are gearing up for what feels a little bit like a almost tournament arc, kind of. Now that can be a little bit touch and go for me because I feel like tournament arc style thing is either my favorite part of a story if it's done like really well, or it's the part where I lose interest. Now, considering how much you guys have hyped up this series for me, how many people seem to really like it, and it got suggested a bunch of times before I sat down and started to read the story, I feel like this isn't gonna be one of those times where I end up deciding that it's like not the story for me. So I'm hoping it'll be really cool, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm gonna be interested to see these 2 teams that are currently going to be fighting each other, to see some of their abilities, maybe focus on learning some more about who they are as characters than we have up to now, especially the team that isn't the one with Shibitsu, because I haven't really spent any time with them. They were kind of introduced after the first part of the Evankel floor stuff, so I don't really know much about them. I don't even think I know their names. So, I mean, maybe it was told to me in one of the panels and I've just forgotten it because I'm awful with names. But interesting to see how that turns out and to see like who actually like makes it into the test and who doesn't. I'm assuming Bomb will. A little bit apprehensive about this team that's jumping in because one, they like killed off basically everyone that they were up against. I mean, probably not everyone because some people might have killed off each other, but definitely like fought hard enough to be the only team that made it through, so that makes them a bit more scary than some of the other teams that we have seen. Also, if it has any connection to Khun's backstory, or if Rachel is in fact on that team, then things are about to get very interesting once that team gets in the mix. Always hit my mic. And of course we got to see Shibitsu in a little bit of a different light, where he got to be the one that was figuring out the puzzle and being the only one that truly figured out how to pass Hong Sung's test correctly. That makes him a far more interesting character because he was a bit comic relief, a bit of an underdog. I really liked him. Anyone who has Sokka vibes, love that kind of a character. So getting to see him be a little bit more formidable and like earn his place as someone who has made it this far into the tower, definitely an interesting turn. I will be I'll be looking forward to learning some of the nuances of who he is as a character. And of course, Rock, I think Rock is my favorite character up to this point. People were saying I was gonna like Kun, and I feel like I have the most in common with Kun because it seems to be every time I say something, every time I make an observation, Kun's like right there to have the same kind of train of thought, but I think Rock is my favorite character. So if you enjoyed this video, you can click this playlist to go and watch the previous videos that I have done on this series, or you can subscribe. I post new Tower of God videos every Tuesday, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!